Hi, mining community, and welcome back to another episode of the Dig Deep, the Mining Podcast. And today's guest is Ralph Shearing, who's the CEO and president of Altaley Mining Corp, who are a Canadian public listed mining company on both the TSX and the Frankfurt Stock Exchange. They operate in Mexico, where they engage in exploration, development, and operation of polymetallic mineral resources projects. Ralph is a geologist by background and has been with the company for an incredible 36 years. Wow. So he's on the podcast today to talk about the company, entrepreneurship in the industry and growth areas within mining. So that's welcome, Ralph, to the podcast. How you doing, Ralph?
I'm doing fine, thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to tell our story.
Yeah, appreciate your time. And yeah, as I mentioned, you've been with the company for 36 years. So I wanted to give us a background about yourself. For those that don't know you, obviously we've got listeners from all over the world, quite a few Canadians, but those that don't know you, wonder if you can just give us an overview, obviously, of your career. Obviously, predominantly it has been with Altaley. So yeah, I hand it over to you.
Sure. Well, I'm a professional geologist, an exploration geologist by trade. I started working for major public companies after graduating from university in the early 80s, and then worked all across Canada in various projects in Yukon, northern British Columbia, Quebec, Ontario, even in Nova Scotia. And then came back to Vancouver somewhere around 85, I guess, laid off, and started to work in the exploration services industry, working or consulting for various mining companies. And then in 1987, a colleague of mine, Paul Chung, and I decided we should venture into the public markets, and we formed this company in a different name and a different structure back then, and we listed it in 1987. So 1987 onward, we explored a couple little projects. In mining, they're very risky, and some projects work out, many others don't. In fact, 1 in 1,000 actually gets to be a mine. So we explored a few projects, didn't have any real joy. And then in 1995, I started to get very interested in Mexico as being an underexplored country. And they just opened up their ownership, the laws I just recognize it as a project that could make a very good mine for a public company. And so we made the acquisition, started some exploration on it. We only explored a small amount when we first acquired it, because gold fell down to the $280 an ounce level, and we never had access to capital. And in this junior public market, you're raising money out of the markets to do your exploration work. So we weren't able to raise any money for a while, and we decided that we better get into some oil and gas. We raised some money, drilled a couple of wells in oil and gas, hit a gas well. Unfortunately, it didn't have a lot of power to produce for very long. We were pretty excited when we hit, but it petered out fairly quickly. And then in 2004, the industry started to recover, and we got reactivated on Tahuehueto, that got the project going in exploration. We spent between 2004 and 2009, about $18 million on exploration. And that's when we drilled the majority of the holes, developed the resource, and the reserves came in later on, but the resources were there that outlined a very good mineralized structure. And then we did a pre-feasibility study in 2017, showed very positive results, and we decided to go ahead and start to put this thing into production based on the pre-feasibility study. And really, that's where we are now. So we raised the money, we got some help from Trafigura, commodity broker, gave them offtake agreements on the project, and we started building the project. We had a few hiccups along the way, but eventually we got this project almost ready to produce. We're literally several weeks away from getting the first ball mill up and running and starting to produce ore on a test basis. And then we hope to bring the second ball mill on within sometime in the second quarter of this year and have the project ready to produce at full capacity of 1,000 tons per day by mid this year. So that's a real quick summary. Somewhere in between that, in 2017, we acquired our zinc mine. That's the Campo Morado mine. It was a project that had been built by a Canadian company called Farallon Mining, and then that project was picked up, or the company was picked up by Nearstar, the operating company Nearstar, who bought half a dozen mines through North America and South America, all zinc mines. Nearstar paid about, I think it was like 410 million Canadian dollars for the friendly takeover, and they put a lot more money back into the project, acquired a streaming royalty from Silver Wheaton Minerals for $25 million. So Nearstar spent probably $500 million on this project. And then they bought all of these mines, including Campo Morado, half a dozen of them throughout North America and South America, at the top of the market, paid top dollar with them. And then it wasn't very long after that, zinc went down to the 80-cent level, and it was extremely hard for them to make any money. And it was the end of that Nearstar operating company. So they sold all their assets. We picked Campo Morado up for an acquisition price of $20 million. And there was over $500 million spent on that project. So, we got a fire sale price, got all of the equipment, got all of the resources reserves, and we put that project back in production in 2017, operated fairly successfully through 2018, 2019. Zinc prices went down again, had some problems. We had to put the project on care and maintenance for 6 months, and we reactivated it in 2000. And we've been working steadily since then, and are actually doing very well on the mine right now. We cut down the operating costs to as low as we could. Metal prices have responded very well, so we're making good money. We're pulling in $2 to $3 million EBITDA monthly off of that project, and that has helped us, actually helped us fund the construction of our Tahuehueto gold project as well. So, I'm rambling on here. I mean, if you want to have any other questions, you can interrupt me. Please feel free.
Yeah, no worries. I will do. No, I was enjoying the story and what's happened with the company, obviously since you joined, which obviously has been quite a few years. So, where do you see some of the project's growth over obviously the next few years? Obviously looking at the gold and the sort of zinc projects.
Yeah, so both of our projects have excellent exploration potential. Targets are all outlined. So, for example, at Campo Morado, the zinc mine, there's several ways we expect to increase our revenues there. And even before we start our exploration on the targets that are generated, we're actually doing what I term a full court press on metallurgy. And there was a study that was done by the previous owners on a forced oxidation and leaching of to recover more gold and silver. So Campo Morado, we have a lot of ore there. There's 20 years of mine life at about 2,000 tons per day. The gold grades and the silver grades are fairly high for that style of a project. It's a volcanogenic massive sulfide deposit. And we get about 1.7 grams per ton gold and 123 grams per ton silver. So those are high precious metals. Unfortunately, this project is what's termed refractory precious metals. So we can't get very good recoveries through traditional flotation methods. So we get about, I think it's about 15 to 20% recoveries in gold. We get 40 to 50% recoveries in silver. Now, this testing that was conducted by the previous owner brought those recoveries up to like 60 to 60% for gold recoveries and 80% for silver recovery. So that's the potential that we see to increase our precious metal recoveries. And in fact, if we're successful on this, we could turn that mine into a silver mine because the silver grade is quite high. So this process is called, there's two processes that they tested were successful. One was the Leachox process. A group out of the UK has developed that. And then there's the Albion process, which is a Glencore technology. Both have gone through first phase testing and both quite successful. So we're going to be testing that very shortly through second phase. But in the meantime, we brought some pilot plants onto Campo Morado to not only try to improve precious metals, but also potentially improve base metal recoveries by going to some technology that works very well for micro fine ground ore. At Campo Morado, the grind levels are, because we're using traditional flotation cells, grinding is about 20 to 30 microns. And Campo Morado, to really get effective best recoveries, you need to grind microfine grind. So we need to get down to 10 to, under 15 microns, 10 would be ideal. And we've just recently been able to do that because we've been waiting for some grinding media that got tied up and not able to be delivered in the problems around for shipping around the world. But anyways, we just got that material mid this month, and we've actually been able to reduce our grind size down to the levels where these pneumatic flotation pilot plants work, and we're starting to see some results. So we still have probably another month of testing there, and then we'll have 1 or 2 more months of testing for the forced oxidation and leaching. And we hope to be able to deliver a much better recovery of both base metals and precious metals at Campo Morado, which will obviously increase our cash flows. And if that is successful, the forced oxidation and leaching, then we hope to be able to reprocess this existing tailings facility that is full, but has a lot of metal in it because it wasn't recovered before. So there's another potential revenue source there. So we'll work through that. We'll see what we can do. But then if we look at exploration potential, starting first at Campo Morado, the previous owners outlined about 15 targets on a property scale basis that are outside of the main underground workings. These are very high level targets. They're ready to drill. All we need to do is locate them and drill them, and any one of those could be a successful outline of new ore for the project. And then if you go in more locally into the underground mining workings, the previous owners had conducted a lot of borehole geophysics and outlined some very good anomalies to depth underneath the existing ore bodies, and actually drilled a few holes into some of them, intersecting good thick sections of high-grade massive sulfides. So those all need to be followed up with drilling. We believe Campo Morado can bring in new reserves, new resources over time, over a couple of years' time, once we have enough money to start drilling and really test them, which could justify a doubling of the size of that mine. So that's a goal we'd like to work towards. We switch over to Tahuehueto. Tahuehueto is a district scale epithermal system, and our company controls about 83% of the prospective terrain in that mineralized district. We've only explored along one major structure within a small area of that overall concession holdings, and that's where we have outlined our resources and reserves. That one major structure is still open to depth, still open along strike. We've traced it over about 2.8 kilometers now and have drilled it in different areas over that 2.8 kilometers. So the exploration potential on that project is extremely good. And I think that with some underground drilling, some drifting, some underground drilling, we could add another third to the resources by getting drilling going again. And we hope to be able to justify an expansion of the mine from the 1,000 ton per day we're building and bringing online now to 2,000 tons per day in a couple of years, and maybe to 3,000 tons a day in 3 to 5 years' time. And all that takes is exploration success, which will come easy on that project. It's the targets are there. We understand the mineralization, and we simply haven't been able to drill more because of lack of access to capital in order to grow that resource. And so that should come very easy. So our plan is get it in production, get the cash flows moving. Now this project, once it's in full production, we expect to be generating $15 to $20 million free cash flow on an annual basis. So those are good numbers. And all our debt, we have about $38 million worth of debt. We expect to be able to pay that back in under 3 years' time, just from production at Tahuehueto. So that doesn't bring into account any revenue or free cash flow we're making at Campo Morado. So maybe we can do this in a couple of years' time, year and a half, 2 years' time, with both projects running optimally.
Obviously, you mentioned with the Zinc project, obviously a lot of recoveries there. You mentioned a UK-based company that assisted you with that. Who were they, and what, I suppose, what impact have they had on the work that they've done to obviously increase the profitability of that mine?
Sure. The group was called the Tahuehueto Mineral Services. They're based out of the UK, and we hired a pilot.
Yeah, I've done a podcast with those guys, so yeah.
Oh, good. Okay,
I know who they are.
Yeah. So, anyways, we had a pilot plant on site from them. Unfortunately, it didn't perform the way we had hoped it would, but we weren't able to get down to the grind size we wanted to. So, I don't think we effectively tested that pilot plant very well. Now, if you look at the forced oxidation and leaching, they had that leachox technology. It's patented technology, and that performed very well with the previous owners of the mine. That's where they brought the potential recovery of gold up to 60%, the potential recovery of silver up to 80%. So those are like a 400% increase on gold from what we're currently getting, and a 200% increase on silver from what we're currently getting. So, that was a successful technology, and we are busy working away. We're actually trying to produce a pyrite concentrate in the lab. We've been successful, and that pyrite concentrate is what we intend to put out to the forced oxidation and leaching, because the majority of the precious metals are locked up in the pyrite, and Campo Morado is 30 to 40% iron, and that's all in pyrite. So a lot of the metal is locked up in the pyrite. So if we can reduce the mass of our tailings by concentrating the pyrite, we'll get most of the gold in that pyrite, and then it'll be a lower capital cost to put in the equipment to force oxidize and as well as to leach. So that's kind of the plan there. I've lost my train of thought. What was your other question?
I just wondered how, obviously, with the recoveries and the work that they've done,
yeah, how
much did that affect your obviously profitability?
Well, it's still in testing phase. So
okay.
The idea is to complete this testing phase, and it's a long process, because metallurgical testing it takes a long time. You test it, you adjust, you test again and again and again and again, and you're continually adjusting to get to the optimal metallurgical recoveries. So we're close now. The Immelflot flotation plant, which was the Tahuehueto Mineral Services, I said we didn't see the results we would have liked to, but we don't think we were down to the grind size we needed to be. We now have a Jameson cell, which is a competing pneumatic flotation cell to the Immelflot one, and Jameson is the Glencore guy. So that's been on site for a while, and we're starting to see some good results, because we have been able to get the grind size down to where these pneumatic flotations are successful and they're designed to operate. So we still got another month of testing with that one, and then we should know what our pathway is. In the meantime, we'll start getting the pyrite concentrate out to these groups to do the forced oxidation and leaching. And once we have that completed, then probably by mid this year, we should know which way we want to go. And then we'll try to start implementing, figure out what our capital costs are to install all of this equipment and increase our precious metal recoveries. The pneumatic flotation should also increase our base metal recoveries. And that's, a good thing for us to go after, because we will start to produce a copper concentrate at Campo Morado sometime probably Q2 of this year. And so once that happens, we've got another revenue source coming in as well.
Obviously, you've got a wealth of experience in the industry. What's your opinion on the state of the base and precious metals markets now, and I suppose over the coming years?
Well, the base metal markets have been very robust over the past 6 months to a year. They've really increased. We're getting very good numbers. In fact, if you look at most base metal mining companies, they're making very good profits these days. And it's kind of a mystery to me why their stocks aren't performing as well as one would expect with these types of profits. It seems to me the market has been more focused on the NTFs and the tech sector that they have on mining, and yet mining companies are making great money these days. So the market now for base metals is great. It's at reasonably high levels, and it's projected for the zinc market, at least for the next year to year and a half, to be reasonably good, robust. And then the base, like copper market itself, is long-term, projected to be long-term highs. Just the demand of the electrification, demand for copper of the electrification of the world is so high that copper is to be a commodity where they're expecting long-term good performance in the copper sector. So all in all, I think the base metals are pretty good for the next period of time. And gold, the precious metal sector, has also been quite good and is getting better due to just look what's happened in Ukraine in the last couple of days. I mean, the gold has been spiking to that, but it's also, a hedge against inflation and the monetary problems throughout the world that governments are creating by printing money hand over fist. So I think that the mining sector is in a very good position to capitalize on all of these events over the coming years.
What kind of advice? Obviously, you've been, like I said, been in the industry for a while, and you seem to have that entrepreneurial spirit. What kind of advice would you give to young entrepreneurs who aspire to venture into sort of mining and the commodity sector?
Mining's a difficult business. Exploration is also very risky, but my feeling is there hasn't been a lot of young people going into the mining and exploration sector. So I think there's be some very good opportunities for young people who like the outdoors or like the mining sector to get involved in the sector, get into the universities, get your education, and then get out there and start working. I think there's going to be not enough people around who are trained in the industry. So I think there's some very good opportunities for people that have an affinity for that sector.
Yeah, and obviously I'm in the recruiting industry, so I do see the future of the industry struggling to find very technical and obviously senior people. I'm starting to see that now, and I think that will increase as we move through the mining life cycle. I suppose moving on from the question I just asked, what advice would you give people that are already in the industry, but that I suppose would have that tendency to have that entrepreneur flair about them, but haven't made that step forward? I mean, what kind of steps would you suggest that they start making to get in a position where they can then show their entrepreneurial flair to then move on and potentially become an entrepreneur in the mining industry?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, the mining industry relies heavily on public markets. It's almost like two businesses in one. As a public company, we're operating the public side of things, where we're trying to get investors interested in our stock, trying to raise money, and then you've got the actual working side of it from the mining sector. So there's almost two businesses in one. So I think there's opportunities for people on both of those sections. If you're more inclined to be someone who likes to work with the public, and you could get into the public company side of things. If you're more technical and you like the hands-on operations, you jump in the operations side of things. How to get there? It's a good question. I guess first off, if you've got the training and you have the resume for it, put yourself into some headhunter groups to see what is out there to find work, because there's a lot of the mining companies rely on headhunter groups for staffing up their operations. So that's a good place to start, I guess. Anyone who's already in the industry already knows quite a bit of this and knows where certain companies are working and knows how to contact them. So I'm not exactly sure if that answers your question, but it's probably the best I can do at the moment.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I just wondered if you could elaborate on terms of, I suppose, certain skill sets that someone should have being an entrepreneur. Maybe someone that's people that are already in the industry, whether they're from a geology background, whether they're from a mine engineering background, What would you say the typical skill sets that someone would have to then move into maybe becoming a bit more of an entrepreneur within the mining industry and take certain projects on to then help grow and develop those projects?
Well, mining side of things, along with the public company sector, is a very diversified business. You need a lot of different people. So not one person's not going to fit all of those job descriptions. You're going to need to surround yourself with good people. So if you're going to start a little company and you get a project to start exploring on, you need to have good people with you to carry the load. No one person can handle it all. So I guess just be aggressive, get out there, find out if you want to find a project, acquire a project, try to go public. There's all various ways of doing that, but you do need a good group of people around you. So assemble your group and get in there, find your project and get on with it, I guess.
Yeah. What makes Altaley an attractive investment, and how does it stand out compared to some of the other projects out there in obviously similar jurisdictions and similar commodities?
Well, we are what I would term, and any CEO is going to say this, the company's undervalued. But in our case, we have one ratio we kind of show people. It's an enterprise value over EBITDA that gives a ratio, and then we compare that to our peers. So, for example, in Mexico, we have a number of companies, public companies, that are in the polymetallic sector. If you look at that enterprise value over EBITDA, Altaley is about 1.4, and the norm or the average is 14. So that gives a lot of growth potential to our stock price, and just being able to realize a lot of that is going to increase our stock price, increase our value, market cap value. And if you, again, I lost my train of thought, sorry. So that's based on one mine in operation, the Campo Morado right now. We're bringing our second mine in operation imminently, like almost any time. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Our second mine coming online, sometime in March, half capacity, full capacity by mid-year. That should double our revenues. So, that's even going to increase our potential value. So we're very undervalued from the market perspective. We're cash flowing, we're cash flow positive. We don't necessarily need to go to the market to raise money. We can survive on the cash flows from Campo Morado, and then we can easily survive once the Tahuehueto cash flows come on stream. So over the past year, we've consistently made $2 million plus EBITDA monthly from Campo Morado. So we're in a good situation. We've got a good group of operations team in Mexico. We've got an excellent board of directors to mitigate risk. And, I think that we are so undervalued that we would be what you would term a screaming buy at this stage.
Yeah, it sounds encouraging. And as a sort of conclusion, what's the sort of short and medium term outlook for Altaley? And where do you see yourself in sort of 18 months' time?
Well, short to mid-term is, as I say, get the next project up and running, double our revenues. We should see a very good valuation in the company after that. So, I think that we should be growing, growing to a mid-tier producer towards the end of this year. And if you look at mid-tier producers, their market caps are generally $300 million to $1 billion market cap. So, this is where I think we can grow this company to in very short order once our Tahuehueto project comes on stream.
Okay, Ralph, really appreciate your time and give us an update of obviously of the company and what you guys are doing with your gold and zinc project. So really interesting to hear your story, and obviously got a wealth of experience in the industry. If our audience wants to reach out to you, if they've got any questions, how can they go about doing that? And are you across any social media platforms at all?
We're all over social media these days. So you just do a hashtag Altaley, you'll certainly find us where we are. I'm doing lots of these webinars, podcasts, etc. So certainly people can get a lot more information on us just by searching in the web. Anyone wants to reach out to us, just send emails out to myself or my team. You can go to our website, obviously, altaleymining.com. It's pretty simple. My email address would be ralph@altaleymining.com. And we'd be happy to answer anyone's questions or provide more information.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And obviously, I wish you well for this coming year. And if you obviously want to come back on the podcast and give us an update later this year or next year, if you have any sort of obviously major news feed, then happy to come on the podcast.
That's great, Rob. Well, thank you for the invite for that. We'll take you up on it.
The
more we get our story out there, the better it is for our company and our shareholders.
Yes, certainly. And those that are listening, I hope you enjoyed the episode. Please reach out to Ralph if you've got any questions on their progress, or any other questions that you may have for him or the company. Obviously, feel free to reach out to him. I hope you enjoyed listening. Appreciate your continued support. Please share this episode amongst others in the industry, no matter where you are in the world. I'm sure they'll be interested in hearing Ralph's story, especially being with the company for 36 years. So he's certainly got a lot of experience and obviously developed the company where they are today. So, like I said, appreciate your continued support. And until next time, happy mining.